the September 17th meeting of the Paducah Planning and Zoning Commission to order and ask that you stand with us as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Gina, will you call the roll, please?
Sure. Mr. Benberry?
Here.
Bradford?
Here.
Morrison?
Here.
Shramke?
Here.
Shadle?
Here.
Wade?
Here.
Chair Casilius?
Here. Thank you. The minutes motion. Mr. Shadle, I believe you have that.
I move that the reading of the minutes for September 5th, 2018 be waived and that the minutes of said meeting as prepared by the secretary be approved as written. Second.
Second by Wade. Are there any corrections? Changes? Call the roll, please.
Benberry?
Aye.
Bradford?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Shramke?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Wade? Chair Casilius?
Aye. Mr. Wade, you have the first item of business, April Jackson.
Yes, I move that this commission receive and file the application of April Jackson for the proposed re-subdivision of property located at 1214 and 1218 Pillar Chase. I further move that the requested waiver of the public hearing and the dedication of streets be given and approval of the submitted plat be granted.
Second.
Second by Shadle.
This is a pretty simple, just a waiver plat. Dr. Jackson owns 2 lots there in the Grove, lots 38 and 39, and she's just proposing to build a house in the middle of those 2 lots, so we're just wanting to abolish the line down the middle and creating one overall parcel.
And I understand that creating this larger parcel will not make it really out of character with the other lots in the
Not at all.
area.
Actually, this has happened quite a bit over there with the larger homes. It just gives them a little more yard.
Any other questions, comments? Call the roll, please.
Benberry?
Aye.
Bradford?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Shramke?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Wade?
Aye.
Chair Casilius?
Aye. Mr. Morrison, you have the second item of business, please.
Yes, ma'am. I move that this commission receive and file the application of Gincana Global USA, Inc. for approval of a light industrial operation located at 322 North 3rd Street. I further move that the following conditions be attached to the approval in order to enhance the view shed in the area and minimize warehousing activities. No less than 5,000 square feet of the building be used for retail purposes and open to the public at least 5 days a week. No more than 10% of the building shall be used for warehousing purposes, 12,000 square feet. Remainder of the building is authorized for office, demonstrative purposes, research, extraction, and manufacturing processes. Drying of the hemp is prohibited. Deviation from this mix of uses may only be authorized after the review and approval by the Planning Commission. 1 shade tree for every 50 feet of frontage along both sides of North 3rd Street shall be provided within 25 feet of the street curb line and maintained at all times. Said trees shall be a minimum of 1.5 caliper inches at the time of planting. A landscape plan shall be submitted for and subject to approval by the Director of Planning prior to issuance of any building permit that provides for enhanced landscaping materials at the new entrance and the location of the required shade trees. Landscaping shall be installed in accordance with the approved plan prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Any chain link fence located within 25 feet of right-of-way shall be removed, including the parking areas located on the west side of North 3rd Street. A decorative thermoplastic pedestrian walkway shall be provided along North 3rd Street, delineating the pedestrian route across the expanse of paving that in front of the building. The route shall be a direct path between the public entrance to the sidewalk abutting the Quilt Museum. Design and layout shall be subject to approval by the Director of Planning. Murals shall be provided, generally matching the provided renderings. Any changes shall be reviewed and subject to approval by the Director of Planning.
Second.
Second by Benberry.
If I may, There are folks here representing Gincana tonight, as well as those renderings that we spoke of that are in your staff report. There are blow-ups of those on the boards there if anybody would like to take a closer look. Also, our city manager, Jim Arndt, asked that I let the Planning Commission know that his office and the City Commission do support the project, and they believe that Gincana has gone above and beyond to make us satisfied with incorporating the building into the landscape that is our riverfront and downtown. And he asked that I pass that along to you.
Questions?
I have one.
Sure.
I didn't notice anything about parking in this, and because retail is attached to it, involved in it, what is the parking?
Across 3rd Street, along with the purchase of this building, are 3 or 4 parking lots, I believe. Those were used by Amerisource Bergen and should be sufficient as well. But we'll get into the parking as we get a development plan once they start renovations of the building. But at this time, we feel that parking is adequate, and we'll get into that a little deeper as we get.
I guess my question really was parking across the street, across 3rd Street, and
Across
this
3rd
is going to
Street.
have retail?
Well, there's also city parking. We lease the parking lot where the farmers market that is leased by the city, and that is public parking. That's on the 2nd Street side of the building. So that is public parking and available for
Safety was
patrons.
my whole question
Sure.
because of crossing
Yeah,
3rd
sure.
Street.
And that's available for patrons as well.
And that's, I believe, part of the reason why the crosswalk was
Crosswalk, that's right.
delineated as being something that's
Right.
really set aside to
And
really
stands out.
not just enhance the project, but also to make drivers aware that there's a crosswalk.
Absolutely.
It's an improvement, because the employees never had, previously never had that kind of,
Right.
Yeah.
That's
No,
true.
they didn't.
What are
definitely improvement.
thermoplastic crossing? What is that?
That,
No,
It's pretty.
Yes.
What
Come up
is-
to the microphone if you don't mind, please. Thank you.
A thermoplastic pedestrian cover. I'm trying to think how to, it would think of acrylic. So almost like a transparent acrylic is what I'd anticipate. It could have a color to it. Would you agree with that, kind of from your perspective? Trying to
usually
think where-
reflective.
Yeah, it would typically be reflective. Agreed. But kind of a protective covering.
And that being a state highway, they're okay with that?
That's probably more of a Cheryl question.
Who, they would be okay?
State highway.
State highway.
Department?
We're
It's one
going
thing for us to require it, but then find out that they deny it.
I thought it was on across, let me go back and look and see where that is. I thought she was referring to,
The truck loading?
yes, that
That's what I
area.
thought
The
at
truck
first, but
loading
then
area?
based on
Yeah.
the
Coming
from the quilt museum.
Come to Quilt Museum to Gincana across Monroe, not Third.
Not across Third.
That's
Right,
different
that's
than what I
different. That's a city street.
Right, that's different
Agreed.
from what I thought. I thought it was, that there was going to be delineation as far as parking going
Yeah,
across on
right.
the other side of Third Street.
Now, she does reference that abutting the Quilt Museum. That's across Monroe Street.
So there won't be a crosswalk going to the park.
It's not to say there won't be, it's just that's not what we're requiring. That's something we'll have to figure out with the Department of Highways.
Okay, okay.
Do you guys have any other building-related design questions?
This is a personal comment on
Sure.
my part. When I first saw the renderings, I thought, wow, that's, kind of knocks you down as far as the graphics. But at the same time, I think what you're trying to do is enhance that area as far as being right next to the Quilt Museum and being something other than just a plain warehouse.
Agreed. I've lived in Paducah my entire life, and so that building has always served a purpose and nothing more than served a purpose.
Right.
It's been very much like having a warehouse in downtown Paducah. And we recognize the concern of the city, and Gincana bought into the idea of being a community member. and contributing something. And so they allowed us a little bit of creative flexibility to do something that was kind of fun and fit in and establish their presence in a strong way, but also embrace the creative nature of Paducah. And hopefully we did that.
Well, I just have a question too from the folks from Gincana about how you have connected with farmers. I know currently there are some demo sites that are growing hemp, but I'm not sure what your status is as far as others who are able to grow that. Yes, please, come. We're just interested.
Thank you. I'm Steve Bevan. I'm from Gincana, one of the founders and the president of the company. Gincana is in Kentucky because of Congressman Jamie Comer. We're so blessed that he was ag commissioner a number of years ago, and he convinced us this was the first best place for hemp. And as we've come to understand Kentucky a little better, having spent the most part of the last 4 years in central Kentucky, we're just amazed by the land and some of the farmers. So you just mentioned I was on 2 farms this afternoon en route from central Kentucky here. Expect to meet 4 or 5 farmers tomorrow. It's very important that we farm with family farmers. The wonderful thing about this hemp stuff and this CBD stuff that we make is that there's a great opportunity for Kentucky to recapture some of its past hemp heritage in a big way, but also at the same point in time to understand that there's some high value products that we want to manufacture right downtown Paducah from local farms nearby. So I'm hoping to be in Carlisle County, Graves County, and Ballard County tomorrow morning. There's no end of interest from farmers, especially with the troubles that tobacco continues to have and likely will forever. So we very much want to empower farmers to farm, and it's very important from our perspective, working with 13 different farmers in central Kentucky and 1 farmer in Graves County right now. Just a great crop, looks beautiful. It's almost hard for us to say that maybe the crop in Western Kentucky looks a little better than that which we've been doing for a few years in central Kentucky. So we are very eager to be here. We're very, very eager to land some of our large drying and processing here. We know that the drying is the part that people might find a little odorous. Some people really enjoy it, but the great likelihood that we have is the need to do that in a rural setting anyways, where there's lots of big trucks with lots of dust and what have you, as most other agriculture is. What we're hoping to do downtown Paducah, it's new for us, establish a retail presence to show off the products that we manufacture for others, so many different brands, and we can literally bring together a storefront full of a bunch of different brands, all with Kentucky farmers' hemp-derived products contained in them. So we're very excited about this, but we have to understand that the farmers are the basis for the entire economics here.
I did go to your website and review it, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see that the requirements that you have for those farmers as far as growing in an organic matter, not using a lot of pesticides, and that kind of any pesticides, which I think is fantastic because the quality of the product depends upon that, I believe.
It's very important. Quality is our most important consideration. We may not be the biggest, but we want to be the very best in quality at all levels. So we're establishing quality measurement tools all the way from our greenhouses and genetics development from University of Kentucky on through the value chain all the way to right to when the consumer would put a product in their mouth. It's very significant, very important. Hemp is a really interesting commodity from a federal perspective. It's a plant and a commodity, and USDA is involved, but FDA is going to be involved very quickly. So one of the other things that is central to what Gincana does is compliance. So we have to be compliant with rules in fields. We have to be compliant with rules for food safety. We have to be compliant with various things, some of which we're not aware of. We may need to be compliant with evolving city needs and planning directives. We will be compliant. We may complain a little bit about it and the costs and the rules, but I promise we will be compliant at every point in time, because when you're doing this stuff that some people think is maybe taboo or what have you, it strikes us as really obvious that being the most compliant is really, really important, and you ought to wear that like a badge. So we're very proud of the compliance from our farms all the way through the value chain, and we'd like to show that off in a retail location downtown.
You know, part of that was one of the questions I was going to ask. This is a very long laundry list of what we're saying you need to do for us to approve it. It also is something that I don't want to have to police afterward, and I'm not sure who would police. So your conversation about compliant, very good.
Well, the good news is we've never done a downtown piece like this, so we don't know what we ought to be doing. We're going to listen and take the advice of.
I think an attractive building is a great start.
It is really neat, and I think in terms of the artwork, as long as it fits into the kind of the cultural mosaic that you all have going on down in the area, we're fine. And if we need to amend or change, or if we could find a way for some local artists to be a big part of that, we would very much.
That was going to be one of my questions, to see if you were planning on employing local artists to help with that, because there are quite a few local muralists.
That would be great. We're probably the only hemp company in Kentucky that has some tobacco barns that have murals on them right now. So this is, and I'm not the creative guy in our group, so forgive me, but this is very, very important to a lot of our.
The other thing is we do have murals here.
Yes.
And we have a mural committee, and it might be a good idea. I believe Earl Morris is still in charge of that, is she not? It might be a good idea so that we have murals working together rather than.
Okay, I think we'd be very pleased to ask for local participation in everything we're doing.
She
please.
would be able to give you a lot of information about the upkeep and et cetera, and the artists that we used, and just so yours don't look so totally different than what we currently have. They'd probably be an asset to it.
That's great. And in terms of the rest of the compliance and or that which might be changing, I might get in trouble for this when I get back in front of our management group or whatever, but since we don't entirely know that which we ought to be, fighting for or pushing back against, we're going to agree and comply. Fair enough?
Yeah.
I'd like to ask, and these are all just kind of like some of these other questions, just for my own benefit and knowledge, but the public might like to know too. It's referred to as a superfood in some of what we've received. Is this considered food product? Is that
is
think
an
about
awesome $64,000 question, or $64 million or $1 billion
So is
question.
it a vitamin? Is it a product? Is it
oil?
So
the FDA is going to have to get back to it.
Right.
And this again brings Kentucky to the forefront, because right now there's a farm bill before Congress. It's in committee, and it is expected to be passed end of the month, according to Leader McConnell and folks that we talked to. This farm bill has taken on a special significance for Leader McConnell. He's on the actual committee, making sure that things happen. He's inserted the entire Hemp Farming Act of 2018 into the Farm Bill to make sure that it carries and gets passed this year. What that does is it changes the consideration of what hemp is, and so hemp it will be legally defined as cannabis sativa L with less than 0.3% delta 9 THC, a few other qualifications, but basically it's cannabis without that scary THC stuff. And that makes all the difference in the world. It brings law enforcement inside, it brings legislators, regulators, and it allows farmers to farm a crop that has been grown here for hundreds of years. Because of the lack of definition of hemp before the 2014 Farm Bill, the FDA's opinions on hemp and or things like CBD, the product that we derive from the hemp, are confusing, and they're based in their marijuana focus, which is still federally illegal, will still be federally illegal next month and next year and what have you. In that light, we expect that USDA will quickly form up with FDA, and that they will evolve some proper definitions. Right now, unequivocally, hemp is food, but hemp-derived products like our CBD are probably better defined as supplements, and so I think we're going to see that evolve. And again, because of that evolution, we will be compliant however that breaks.
But you don't see it moving toward prescription?
There are some formulations based on the CBD stuff taken from marijuana plants.
Mm-hmm.
One called Epidiolex that GW Pharma has moved through FDA approval, and it is legally going to be a drug. Because of that, there's a whole bunch of U.S. and international rescheduling movements around cannabis. So cannabis has been very poorly defined. Some people call it marijuana. Some people call it cannabis. They spell it differently. It means different things in different places, different countries. It's a real quagmire. The beauty of the Farm Bill legislation is that it pulls the hemp definition out of the marijuana definition, removes it from the Controlled Substances Act, and so the classification of GW Pharma's products as a drug, or as something that can be prescribed as a drug, should have no effect on what the farmers are doing and the throughput there. At least that's the best legal advice that we've gotten, industry groups have gotten. It seems to be where the political leadership is at, and we're very hopeful of that. We don't want to be telling our farmers 6 months or a year from now that, oops, it's a drug on your all's farm. That's not really the way they want to go. What's great about Kentucky farmers too is that a lot of them grow corn for bourbon.
Yes.
They grow corn for ethanol. They grow corn for cornflakes, for silage, for feed. So these are all federally regulated and state regulated products, and so there is a path for something like this CBD, and maybe even one day this THC, to be regulated by federal and or state and or local authorities. That's all going to evolve as we move through time, and again, it's important that we all just have an open mind and insist that whatever the rules are, compliance be maintained.
I can tell you that in a world that is dealing with an opioid crisis, CBD oil is an alternative for pain medication. I personally have 2 dogs who are on CBD oil, and it works. So, I mean, that's just my experience with CBD, but I also know a lot of people who are on CBD oil that have had a lot of really...
So because this has been federally illegal, and there have been impediments, especially from federal agencies, into proper research and studies, what you have there is anecdotal evidence. It's wonderful, and it's amazingly consistent with everybody else's anecdotal evidence, but it is still that, and for that reason, folks like us, the retail operation, there will be no claims, there will be no this cures or this helps
it never
or this
says
what have you.
Because
there will be discussions, and we will help. There's a human or a public health aspect to this that is evolving, and you're right about the opioids. And if you asked pharmacists who don't really want to sell opioids, if they could have a bottle of this other stuff from a Kentucky farm that might mediate or lessen the need for opioids, and they could actually make a good amount of money on this and have less DEA interaction because they're selling a cannabis product instead of an opioid, they'll jump all over this. And so that discussion is going to evolve relatively quickly over the next year, I believe. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call the roll, please.
No. Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
You could if you bring that up.
Ben Berry,
Aye.
Bradford,
Aye.
Morrison,
Aye.
Schramke,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Wade,
Aye.
Chair Casilius.
Aye. Ms. Schramke, you have our final item of business.
I do. I move that this commission adopt a resolution approving the final subdivision for property located at 1720 and 1740 New Holt Road.
Second.
Second by Ben Berry.
This is the final subdivision plat for the new subdivision referred to as the townhomes at LeBerry Farm on New Holt Road. This is the final version of the preliminary plat that was brought through a few months ago that was approved. We've been working with engineering and planning and zoning over the past few months, finalizing some details on all the engineering requirements, and I believe we have those met now, and this is the first step of getting the final plat approved and then hopefully going to the City Commission before too long. So.
Were there any downsides to having to put the cul-de-sac where it is? Anything that's not obvious?
Any downside?
Yeah. We wanted the neighbor to, originally we were discussing it, right?
I'm sorry?
Originally, we were trying to get property elsewhere for the cul-de-sac. Property owner to the east.
Maybe on the preliminary plat that came through, there was going to be a temporary cul-de-sac placed on the property to the east.
That was temporary?
Yes,
Okay.
with the hope that maybe down the road, this roadway would continue on to the east and possibly be developed. But the thought was, after meeting with engineering, and it would be better to just keep it self-contained on this property, so the cul-de-sac was moved entirely on to the developer's property.
Okay, so it really did.
That way there wouldn't be any maintenance issues or anything on the neighbor.
I know that there were also several items that were listed in the staff report, 10 of them to be exact. You willing to meet all of those?
Yes, that was some time ago, I think, and I believe they've all been addressed. If there's any specific that you could speak to, I'll be glad to go into detail.
We've discussed all those with you, and all.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't be any surprises.
Are there any other questions, comments? Call the roll, please.
Sure. Denberry?
Aye.
Bradford?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Schramke?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Wade?
Abstain.
Chair Casillas?
Aye. That's our last item of business that we have tonight. However, we do have a presentation, I believe, from the Director of Planning.
Do you want to wait and get them to sign and release them?
Do you want to go ahead and have them sign? Do you need a moment?
No, go ahead and have them sign.
Okay.
No need to
If you
wait.
go ahead and
That's okay.
bring your plats up, I'll go ahead and sign them for you.
Commissioners, while you're signing, I'm just going to go over a few things. It's going to be short and sweet because I've had some dental work done, so I'm really trying hard not to bite myself. But I wanted to make you aware of a few developments that are happening, and also share with you that I will be coming before you pretty regularly now with updates about projects we have going in the department and in City Hall in general. The first thing I wanted to make you aware of is a project that we call Munis, which is a software program that we are using throughout City Hall to be more productive, more collaborative among our departments, as well as to facilitate easier interaction by the public with City Hall. It will include, and we are working through those steps, but assuming all goes well, and of course there'll be bumps, but eventually we'll get through it. Eventually we will have online submittals for permits as well as plan review. We also hope to have a more robust way for the public to know what's going on in terms of applications before you and other bodies. So that is something that we be looking forward to. The second thing I wanted to bring to your attention, and there are 3 total, is I'll be bringing before you a proposal for an update and amendments to your rules of procedure. And in those rules of procedure will include a more robust legal notice requirement so that more members of our community know up front what is going on. And so the first time they hear about it isn't when they see this on TV. More robust notice requirements. Also, a more structured way of running the meetings so that when we have controversial cases, you have the tools and the mechanism in your rules to handle that so that at the end of the meeting, everybody feels like they've had their say. They might not have gotten their way, but they've had their say. And so it just facilitates a more positive relationship with the community. And the third item, and there'll be other items within the rules of procedure that are amended, but those are the 2 biggies. The third thing I wanted to bring to your attention is as the city is looking at efficiencies and doing more with less, or some departments would characterize it as less with less, but I'd like to think we're still doing more with less. I'm going to be working with legal counsel, and this is at the urging of the City Commission, to consolidate the Urban Renewal Community Development Agency with the Planning Commission, and so that you would become one and the same. To that end, we have had great participation on the URCDA, and we would like to include those members at the table here on the Planning Commission. Why are we doing this? We're doing this so that our processes within our department can be streamlined, so we only have one schedule, if you will, or one rolling schedule, if you will, of hearings to prepare for, instead of another one that is hit or miss on whether or not there are applications. And the second is we save on legal notice, newspaper notice, and generally what comes before all the notifications throughout City Hall. And then finally, or actually not finally, another efficiency we save is the fact that you all meet twice a month, and the URCDA only meets once a month. And so frequently, people who have something pending before the URCDA have to wait an extra long period of time. And so we'd like to be more responsive to those requests. And finally, I believe it's a natural fit for this to happen because you are the body that is ultimately responsible for redevelopment activities in the city. And when we had high volume of actions that needed to be handled, the fact that the URCDA was a separate agency made sense. And I speak specifically to when the Fountain Avenue project had just taken off, when the Lower Town Artist Program was underway. there was a very high volume of individual requests that needed public oversight. We do not anticipate having that high volume for the next few years. We will be doing projects, it just will not entail a lot of individual actions. And so I just wanted to consolidate for that, for efficiency's sake. We are not removing the option of reinstating it, but in the interim, we're going to consolidate and save everyone time as well as resources. So those are the three big things I wanted to bring, to give you, if you will, a heads up on. You will be seeing them come in a more formal way a little bit later. Actually, hopefully you'll see them in a draft, and then we'll have your comments, and then a more formal adoption. But I just wanted to give you that heads up. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them as much as I can. They're still in the mix of being massaged, but I'd love to hear any comments or questions.
Well, my first question would be, how many people are on the urban development? I mean, how many of us will there be that will be considering items?
This would mean there would be just 2 more people sitting at the table here today, because Bob's on both. He double dips.
So, I think you've already answered this question, but prior to your arrival, Urban Renewal had made a recommendation for the next follow-on project after Fountain Avenue that has never been acted on. So we're curious on what's going to happen there, but from what you just said, it sounds like there is not going to be another neighborhood that will be developed or redeveloped in the manner of Lower Town and then Fountain Avenue.
And I suspect
it's very key, the phrase you used, in that same manner.
Yes.
We will be addressing other neighborhoods in redevelopment, but it will not be in that same manner.
Okay. So then that, to me, puts to rest that open item of the recommendation for the third one. That's closed. Okay.
For now. For now. I mean, you know, obviously, I mean, I'm sure it has to do with pools of money not being as available anymore for redevelopment, for projects that, you know, are considerable. You can't begin a project if you don't know that there's going to be something there to continue that development and to take it to completion. And so it's probably better you've done.
I will say that
the
within
types
that
of
selection, there were 7, I can't remember what number we looked at, 7 very deserving, all with their individual unique needs.
Sure.
So I do agree with the idea. Let's not exclude the others for the purpose of one high intensity like we've done before. I'm fine with that. I was just curious if that is now being shelved, and the idea of, and that's what I heard from you, and you've clarified it, that we're still going to do all over the city, but not focused exclusively.
We need to share the love a little bit more.
Right. Smaller projects in more areas, yeah.
And yes, exactly. The resources have changed.
The 2 people, as Mr. Wade, one of them, so is there actually just one person, or is there?
No. He's,
That'd be
2 more,
3.
not counting
So it's
him.
3.
Yeah.
Unless you want to take a collection and get me off. Open offers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for being here under the circumstances that
Yes.
you're under tonight. That really shows dedication on your part. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I hope you feel better.
Saying about that's easy for you to say, we could tell that it was not easy for you to say.
Easy for you to say.
Well, I just didn't want to bite mine. And you know how it is when you had Novocaine. It's like,
Should have brought enough for all of us.
well,
You know, it's on the record.
No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
that's on one of those magic lists. You can't do that.
No, but
Another discussion. It's going to be on YouTube tomorrow, Bob.
Speak, can you walk a straight line?
It is now 6:11, and I am adjourning this meeting.
Thank you.